You are here, and I'm also thankful that God has brought me to FCHS to serve as your new guidance counselor. And I'm looking forward to working with all of you in the future. I hope that this information you receive tonight will help give you direction and knowledge as you and your student navigate through their academic journey on their road to college. All right, see? Oh, okay, sorry about that. Tonight, as I go through these slides, I'm going to highlight some key points and give you an overview of each of them. Most of the slides will correlate to the packet of handouts that you received as you arrived this evening. There we go. Okay. Here are the academic advising services provided by FCHS that are important for all of you to know. Our goal here at FCHS is to provide excellence in guidance and support for your student as they journey through their high school years on their road to college and future careers. We care about the success of your student, and we're committed to helping your student achieve their academic goals and future aspirations by providing the services listed here. Also, I have a college planning calendar on the back table that gives you a picture of how we use these services throughout each of your students' grade levels. Please pick up either a freshman or sophomore calendar or a junior and senior calendar dependent on your student's grade level. Go to the next slide. Here are the graduation requirements for FCHS. This should be the first handout in your packet. These graduation requirements are broken down into subjects and how many credits or years are required for each subject. Please note right here that 5 credits is 1 semester and 10 credits is equal to 1 year. So English, they're required to take 40 credits, which is 4 years. Please also note that the bullet point highlights important information about each subject. Okay? So on the other side of the graduation requirement handout, you'll find the A to G requirements. These A to G requirements are the 15 required courses that qualifies a student for admittance to either the University of California or the California State Universities. Please note that the requirements for other colleges or universities do not follow these A to G requirements. Okay, they're different. Okay, as you look at this handout, each letter of the A to G requirements represents a subject. So if you look up here, for example, A represents history, B represents English, C represents mathematics, and so on. Each subject has certain A to G requirements, but FCHS has certain requirements that may be similar or differ from the A to G requirements. I know it's a little confusing. For example, the A to G requirements for history is 2 years. For FCHS is 3 years. So they're going to easily fulfill those A to G requirements. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. This little print right here explains the A to G requirements more specifically. This line right here are the classes that FCHS provides to fulfill those A to G requirements. Okay? Please don't let this sheet overwhelm you. Myself and the staff here at FCHS are here to help you and your student navigate through this process. So in the future, if you have any questions, please make sure that you call me, okay? Okay. Okay, this should be the next handout in your packet. These are the factors considered by colleges in the admissions process. As your student enters high school, you and your student want to take all of these factors into consideration as your student journeys through their 4 years. This includes planning for the quality and the depth of their future resume. Keep in mind that your student will use this resume for all college applications and scholarships. Okay, so it's important to think about all of these factors as they go through the 4 years. FCHS can also help guide you and your student about other AP class options for qualified students, dual enrollment at either Yuba College or Grand Canyon University, and the testing processes for the SATs and the ACTs. If you have any questions about any of this, please let me know. Oh, and the last thing I wanted to mention, we know that the SAT and ACT test can be intimidating to students. So as Mr. Smith previously mentioned, we are looking at starting the PSAT in 8th grade, which is considered as the pre-SAT test. So if they start taking it in 8th grade, it's going to give them the opportunity to take the PSAT 4 times, which then prepares them for the SATs. Also, there's a handout in the back, a parent's guide, getting your teen ready for the SAT. So if you would like that information, please pick that up on your way out. Okay. Oops, sorry, I took it back. Okay. Here are the upcoming dates for the SATs and ACTs for the spring and summer. Juniors should start taking the SAT and the ACT the spring of their junior year, then the summer and the fall of their senior year. It's recommended that if you take it more than once, there's 2 out of 3 students increase their scores. And as soon as I know next year's testing dates, I will email them all out to you. Okay. My last handout, so if you flip over the ACT and the SAT dates handout, this is a list of many helpful websites that will help you on your road to college. This handout contains websites about college information, right here, college testing, and then here's student is interested in playing sports in college, and then financial aid. So thank you for your time this evening and coming and spending it with us. I look forward to working with all of you in the future. Please feel free to contact me whenever you have questions. My contact information is at the bottom of the agenda. Okay, it has my email and my phone number. Okay. I would like to introduce our next presenter. Her name is Energy Diol. She is the Outreach and Recruitment Specialist from Yuba College.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to be talking to you about the 3 public systems in California of higher education. In California, we have quite a bit of educational institutions with colleges and universities. These are just a few. So we're going to start with the California Community College System. I'm going to move away. I'm kind of short. You probably can't see me out there. With the California Community College System, there are going to be soon 115 community colleges. Currently, we have 114. They are in the works of having an all-online community college for working students and adults. So we will have 115. There's about 2.1 million students that do attend the community college system. Now, one of the opportunities available is dual enrollment. So this could be at the high school or it could be at the college. This is where students have the opportunity to earn college credits once they finish their 8th grade. They can actually start that summer. These college courses, if they are transferable, the student can take them with them to any university or college they go to once they transfer. They don't have to be going to Yuba College to do the dual enrollment. This handout is in the back. Students do not have to pay for their courses. Normally it's $46 per unit, but the student would not pay. They would just get their textbooks. Now they can rent textbooks as well, so it is very cost effective. Students can also meet some of their A through G requirements. Sometimes with the high school they're trying to do additional courses. So for example, the foreign language, maybe a student wants to take sign language or Spanish, or we're also having French. If they do one semester, that counts as 1 year for their A through G. So a student could do 2 semesters of sign. It does have to be the same language, and that could also help them in completing their A through G requirements as well. This handout, as I mentioned, is in the back. Now, the admissions requirements for the community college system are being 18 years of age or having a high school diploma. The reason and no SAT or ACT testing is required. The reason for these requirements is that we have a wide range of educational offerings. Not all students are coming to the community college because they're going to be transferring. Some students are trying to get workforce training, so they may be taking a few classes. We also do certificate and degree programs for students who maybe are wanting to get a certificate and get that training and then go out into the workforce. They could range from 1 semester to 2 semesters. We also do prepare students to transfer to the 4-year university. Students are able to do their freshman and sophomore year at the community college, complete their 60 units towards their bachelor's, transfer to the university as a junior, where they will finish their junior and senior year. Now, with the community college system, we do educate 70% of the state's nurses and 80% of the firefighters, law enforcement personnel, and emergency medical technicians. Now, next, we're into the California State University system. The CSUs have 23 campuses throughout the state of California. They do serve 484,000 students. And you can see on the map the various campuses that are available. The application submission period is October 1st through November 30th of the student's senior year. Now, eligibility for a freshman to go to the CSU is completing their A through G requirements and taking the SAT or ACT. If a student has a 3.0 GPA or higher, their test scores don't always matter as much on their SATs and ACTs, but if it is an impacted CSU, the student does want to try to have a higher score. Now, the lower the student's GPA goes from a 2.0 to a 2.9, then their test scores do have to be higher. And the CSUs use the eligibility index. If you go to their website, you can actually see the index. It'll indicate with what GPA, what SAT and ACT scores are required. The A through G courses that the universities use initially are 10th and 11th grade. So that's why we want to make sure students are starting strong, as a freshman on. Now, if a student is going to transfer, they can complete 60 or more transferable semester units at the community college level, and then they are able to transfer to the CSU. With the CSU, there are the golden 4 classes that they do want the students to complete, and that's the oral communication, written communication, critical thinking, and then their college level mathematics. Those 4 do have to be completed in order for the student to transfer. A student does have a 2.0 or higher. When a student is transferring, SAT and ACT scores are no longer looked at because they are utilizing the student's college GPA. Now, it is really important to note that even though it's a 2.0, if a student is trying to get into an impacted school, they do want to make sure that their GPA is stronger, especially if they're going into a program such as engineering where the GPA criteria is set higher. About 51% of the CSU graduates started at a community college, so a lot of students do transfer. Now, the next system is the UC system. That's the University of California. So there are actually 10 campuses. 9 of those a student can transfer to as an undergrad. UC San Francisco is a medical college, so a student can't go as an undergrad. Now, with the UC system, the application submission period is only a month, November 1st through November 30th. So students only have that opportunity during their senior year to submit the application. This is also true if the student is going to transfer. The dates are similar. The application opens August 1st. So they're actually allowing students to start working on the application earlier. Unfortunately, a lot of students will wait until the last week. But the UC application is a little more tedious. There are 2 prompts that the student does have to answer, so they do have to do somewhat of 2 essays. And so it is important if the student starts earlier because it will take them a little bit more time. And the applications can be saved and the student can go back in. So the UC system serves about 238,000 students. Now for freshmen, the UC requirement is completing the A through G courses. They do want at least 15 of those to be completed by the end of the student's junior year. So there is a handout on the back table. It has the CSU and UC comparison so that students can see the differences, because there are a few variations even within the A through G requirements that the CSU and the UC do have. The student does have to have a 3.0 or higher and no grade lower than a C their senior year. The students also have to do the ACT plus writing and the SAT with essay by December of their senior year. So they do have to have that completed by the end of the fall semester. The SAT subject tests are not required for the UC system, but sometimes depending on the student's major, a UC may recommend a subject test that they want the student to take. So the student can look to see if their major and their UC is looking for them. The UC application review process is a holistic review. They actually read every single application that they receive. They have readers that go through every application. So it is really looked at. It's not only the GPA. We do see a lot of students, I mean, it did say 3.0, but a lot of students are getting in with 4.0s and higher in some cases, you know. So it is really important if a student is looking to go to the UC to really make sure that they are working hard in their classes. Usually students that rank in the top 9% of their high school are able to get into, and they meet the eligibility local contacts, they are able to get into one of the UCs. Now for transfer students, students can do their, they can satisfy their general education requirement by doing the IGETSI, the Intersegmental General Education Transfer Curriculum. We also have this sheet at Yuba, so if a student is doing dual enrollment, they can make sure that they're completing classes that are going to transfer to the UC, and it'll meet those areas as well. So students do want to do 60 units again, transferable. They can also do UC campus specific requirements, so they may have certain classes that they want in general ed. So it's really important for students to meet with their counselors when they do get to whichever college or university they do go to. Now with the UCs, students do have to have a 3.0 or higher to transfer, even from the community college system. But again, they're doing college courses, so they're already meeting that rigor. That's why the GPA, they can get in with the 3.0, 3.2. A student should be fine. Now, 6 of the 9 campuses do have the transfer admission guarantee, the TAC, with the community colleges. This allows a student, once they've completed 30 units, to apply for the TAC for one of those UCs, if that's the one they really want to go to. If they really want to go to UC Davis, they can do the TAG, and a year before the student is ready to transfer, the student will be told, if you maintain this GPA and you complete these courses, we are guaranteeing you a spot. And so when the student is ready to transfer, all they have to do is do their application and they can go to that UC. They can still apply for other UCs as well. If they do a TAG, it doesn't mean they have to go to that system. The only 3 that do not participate in the TAG are UCLA, UC Berkeley, and UC San Diego, because they receive a lot of applications. So they're not able to guarantee a spot, but a student can still transfer to them through the community college system. About 29% of the UC graduates started at a community college and transferred. Now, financial aid, we're talking about the colleges, but we also want to talk about how to pay for that. When the students get into college, they are responsible for paying registration fees and tuition. Also, students do have to purchase their textbooks. If they're going to move away, they're going to be in dorms or living off campus. So we do want to make sure that students are aware there is a lot of financial aid available. And I always tell parents and students, please never assume you're not going to be eligible. Let them tell you that, okay? And especially now, there's been so many changes. There are a lot of financial aid sources that are available that even perhaps parents who are higher income, their students can actually still get some assistance as well. So there are, through the federal government, the state government, the colleges have what's called institutional aid and outside private sources as well. Now with the federal government, that's your FAFSA, your free application for federal student aid. That one application actually gets the student started for various financial aids. So the ones you're going to see after this, that one application is going to connect them to all of those. When they do the one application, they're applying for the Pell Grant, the FSEOG grant, the federal work study, as well as loans. So this is allowing the student to be considered for all of these sources. Loans are not automatic. The student can accept or decline them. The difference with the two loans, the subsidized, if a student meets certain income criteria, they could have it where the interest is paid while they're in school, and they don't start making the payments until usually about 6 months after they're no longer taking at least 6 units. The unsubsidized loans, from the moment the student takes the loan, they are incurring interest on top of that. So we do want to make sure students are aware that when they take loans, they are going to be paying them back. And that's not the time to be in college for like 10 years because the interest is occurring on the loan. Now the FAFSA, once the students complete that, through the state of California, we do have Cal Grant. They usually do try to really get in students to apply because they want to make sure that students are considered for this state grant. We do have 3 different Cal Grants. Student can only receive one of them. So we have Cal Grant A, B, and C. Cal Grant C does not have a GPA requirement. This is usually for students who want to go into a certificate or a technical school program. And so they do have to have a program a minimum of 4 months. And this assists the students with books, supplies, tuition, and fees. So if they go to a community college, it's going to probably cover more than if they go to a technical school because it's going to cost them more there. Now with Cal Grant A, that one requires a 3.0 GPA or higher. So that's why we really stress for students to really make sure they're doing well in their classes, they have a strong GPA, because that is one of the factors that Cal Grant does look at. And with the Cal Grant A, the income ceiling is higher. So if the parent's income is higher, they could still get a Cal Grant and maybe not qualify for the Pell. That's also a possibility. Now, Cal Grant A would cover tuition and fees at a 4-year school in California. A lot of times students want to go out of state, and we always tell them just list one school so you get considered. And if you go out of state and for some reason you decide to come back the next year, you could put your Cal Grant on hold and you have it available to you. Because for high school seniors, they're under what's called entitlement. As long as they meet the GPA requirement and the income criteria, they're going to receive the Cal Grant. The year they graduate, and they're also still under that the year after. So this GPA is 10th and 11th grade. So I've had a student before who had a 2.99, but they're like, put my senior year GPA in and I'll have over a 3.0. So the next year they were able to apply for it and then they were able to receive it. Now with Cal Grant B, that's also good for 4 years. That one is a minimum 2.0 GPA. The income ceiling for this one is lower. And it provides assistance with books and supplies the first year, and then starting the second year, if a student is at an institution that charges tuition, they do cover that. So if a student is going to go to the CSU or the UC system, Cal Grant A and B would cover their tuition. So CSU's, it's about $5,700 to $6,200. The UC, it's about $12,000 to $15,000 for tuition for a year. This is the income criteria of the current academic year. So if you have a senior right now, this is what they're considering for Cal Grant. The deadline for Cal Grant is March 2nd. The FAFSA opens October 1st now, so students can actually start applying in the fall semester. The earlier a student applies, the more opportunities they have of receiving maybe more financial aid than if they wait, because they might be eligible for something, but if the school does not have that funding available, then they won't receive it. So for example, a family of 6 or more, if their income is $118,500, the student could be considered for Cal Grant A or C. If it's $65,000 to $100,000, the student could qualify for the Cal Grant B. They do have the asset ceiling on the bottom as well. So for dependent students, the parents can have assets up to about $79,300. This changes a little bit every year. Now, institutional aid is financial aid offered by the various educational institutions. So at the California Community College, we have what's called the California College Promise Grant. This is income-based. This used to be known as our BOD waiver. So if the student qualifies for this, they are not paying the $46 per unit at the university. It will waive that as long as the student is eligible for that. Now, something new is the California Promise Grant. And we live in California. They want to confuse us, so they named it very similar. Now, the California Promise Grant is not available at all of the 114 community colleges. About 25 to 30 of us do have it. And a lot of times the colleges will name it a little different. So ours is called the Yuba College Promise. And with the Promise Grant, this is not based on income. So a student could be a higher income student, but as long as they're a first-time college student, which all high school seniors are, even if they take college classes in high school, the first fall and spring semester, if they're in 12 units, they're not paying the tuition. So it covers their tuition for a year. When you go to the CSU system, for some students, they may not qualify for the Cal Grant, but they may still qualify for the state university grant. If a student's EFC is $4,000 or less, this will cover their tuition at the CSU. With the UC, they have various grants and scholarships that are available. When the student does their application, they actually ask them, are you a first-generation student? You know, are your parents involved in some kind of agricultural, area? Various things like that, and then they'll consider the students for those scholarships. Now, the UCs also have the Blue and Gold plan. They do provide assistance to students to cover tuition and fees if the student's total parent family income is $80,000 or less. So they will try to get scholarships, grants, loans, and work study and work all of that together to assist the student with the expenses. At the private colleges and universities, there are a lot of grants and scholarships available. A lot of times students think because it's a private, it's going to be a lot more, but you really have to look at the individual school because they do have a plethora of grants and scholarships that are available. What we do recommend to students when they're looking at scholarships, when you're applying to colleges, see what's available. Check out their website. See if they have scholarships that they're offering. I know with us, we have one application and students are applying for like 100 scholarships. We have 5 seniors last year from both counties that applied. So there is a lot of money available in scholarships. These are folks that are wanting to assist the students with their educational endeavors. And they're based on various criteria. They're not all need-based scholarships. Some are based on merit. Some are based on the student's major. With ethnicity or gender, there's an engineering scholarship. Not a lot of female students go into engineering. There's a scholarship for females that are going into engineering because they want to encourage more females in that area. Athletics, if the student is involved in athletics or extracurricular activities. Community service, Coca-Cola has a scholarship. If students do a lot of community service, they can apply for that scholarship. You do want to make sure when you're applying for financial aid, if they're charging you to apply, it's probably not very legitimate, so you do want to make sure you're going through a legitimate site.
Thank you, Enrique. So there's 2 handouts in the back based off of the information that she talked about. One is that CSU UC comparison chart, and the other is a breakdown of cost. So please grab those on your way out. Okay. I would like to introduce our next presenter. It's Mitchell Borges. He is an admissions counselor from Grand Canyon University. And there's going to be a quiz coming around for each student that goes along with his presentations.
Thanks, everybody. Like she said, I'm with Grand Canyon University. I'm an admissions counselor. I'm a student alumni over there, and I'm not too far from graduating high school back in the day. So I'm here to kind of give you guys just some perspective on the questions to the answers to the questions that I didn't know as a high schooler. There's a lot of stuff that I learned coming into this position that I would have loved to know back in that time, and I just didn't, right? I kind of guessed my way through, and I made it here, but I want to help you guys make it a little bit easier. I'm going to start just with some general information on kind of the private school section, because we've got some great information on the UCs, CSUs. I want to give a little bit of information here. Like all the schools, private schools in particular, are very different from each other, just as far as academic requirements, costs, things like that. So the biggest thing I'm going to say is ask questions. Don't be afraid to come to us counselors and ask us for advice or really anything. The more answers you guys can get, the better. And I'm probably going to repeat that a million times in this presentation, because that's what it's about, right? The more information you can put in front of yourself, the more schools that you can directly compare to each other, the easier this decision is going to get. So typically the big difference with private schools is tuition, but again, not all schools are the same. Tuition can be from $16,000 to $60,000 a year for these private schools, right? It varies quite a bit, so it's all about looking into them. I personally wanted to go to a private school at the time. I didn't know a lot of why I wanted to, but I wanted to, and I hunted until I found that school that was $16,000, right? So there's plenty of options there. The one big benefit here is for anybody looking to go out of state, wanting to go check out another school. With private schools, you're not going to have that typical out-of-state tuition. I'll use ASU for an example, because I went to Phoenix for college. ASU's tuition is usually going to be close to double for someone coming from California, because it's that out-of-state tuition. With a private school, you're not going to have that same cost difference, so if you see it, the price will be the same. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. The other big difference that you'll see is private schools tend to be a lot smaller. I was reading earlier, your average private school in the United States has 1,900 students, right? Smaller campuses are generally going to mean smaller classes, closer connections with your professors, but again, not always the same, right? I went to a private school that had 21,000 students, so it varies quite a bit here. And then the other piece that's usually kind of a key part of the private schools is a lot of them are going to have a religious affiliation. So if you're looking for another learning environment where you can be in that Christian environment and kind of have that incorporated into your classrooms, private schools could be a good route for that. There's a lot of options there, even within California, where you can look into those things. Again, my biggest piece is just kind of asking as many questions as possible. That's kind of what that career and college quiz is in front of you. It's really a way to get you thinking about what that could look like. It's a crazy journey, right? There's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of pieces to kind of connect. So the best thing you can do is start putting down on paper what you think you want that to look like, and then investigating that. And going and visiting different schools or different programs that might meet those needs you're looking for. And that's really going to solidify either, yes, that's what it is, or you know what, maybe you've changed your mind. Maybe there's something different there. The first place I always say to start is your career. Seems a little crazy to skip past the college piece, but you really got to think about what's that dream job that you're looking for, and then you're going to backtrack. Because starting today, you guys are building your resume for your dream job. It's scary, it's a lot of stuff, right? You're going to obviously have some flexibility there, but you want to start thinking about, okay, what do you want to do, and then what do you need to do from here on out to get you there. So there's a lot of pieces to look into. The career piece covers a lot of really basic stuff, right? Who do you want to work with? Do you want to work with children, older people, no people at all? Like, what kind of environment do you want to see yourself in, right? It's all about setting that stuff up. And some of those questions seem really basic, but that could be really important for you, right? So just be realistic, and then I say once you complete it, go through and mark the top 3, mark the top 5 that you say, these are the most important ones, and that's going to give you a ton of direction. For me, I wanted to work with people. I really like business. I wanted to be kind of entrepreneurial in that sense, and I was really drawn to marketing, so that's kind of where I started, right? With that marketing background, I was able to backtrack and say, okay, what internships or networking opportunities do I need to set up for myself to get that job in the future? What degree is going to set me up? What university is going to give me the resources in order to be the best, advertising agent applicant that I could possibly be? And start piecing all that stuff together, and that's really going to help this college search seem a lot clearer, right? Because now you know what you're trying to build towards. The next piece is going to be finding that college that's going to fit all those needs. And there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. First thing I always say to look at is location. It's something I definitely wasn't thinking about, right? I was thinking of the basic stuff, class sizes, things like that. But I wasn't considering that, hey, if I'm going to move away from home, I'm going to be living somewhere completely new. But that can turn into so many opportunities. I grew up in Central California in a smaller farming town, and I wanted something bigger, but I wasn't really sure what that was going to look like. Ended up in downtown Phoenix, right? I actually went to Grand Canyon University, so I ended up in downtown Phoenix in the 5th largest city in the United States, and I had no idea what I was getting into, right? But there were a ton of things that came from that. Bigger cities are going to mean more internships, more networking opportunities, more job options, more things to do outside of college, sporting events, concerts, things like that. And it created this whole new world where I was able to kind of spread my wings and do something different than I had done in high school. It's all stuff that you want to look at, and like for me, advertising agencies, being in a city that had a ton of great ones, was an opportunity for me that I wouldn't have necessarily had going to a school in a smaller area. You also want to realistically think, how far away from your family are you comfortable going, right? Some kids are like, I'm going to Alaska, I'm out of here, and some are like, I need to stay in town. So it really goes both ways, but just be realistic with yourself, right? And stretch yourself a little bit. I'm going to talk about visiting campuses. If you guys can get onto a campus and spend the night, that's going to be a huge indicator of, you know what, are you comfortable going to a college out of state, right? Is that going to give you that kind of feel? Because if that one night's really uncomfortable, then what's the 4 years going to look like? Something like that. So you want to start thinking about that stuff. Cost of living. It's probably not going to be this huge surprise, but college students don't tend to have a lot of free money left over. If you want to find a place where you can maybe be, living affordably. I just came from San Jose, where cost of living out the window, right? It's a crazy place to be. And I was really missing my Phoenix prices, where gas was like $2 a gallon. So you want to consider those things. It makes a difference, definitely. And weather's the other big thing. What I say here is, pull up weather in the city you're going to go to, and then go cross out the summer months. Seems weird, but realistically, most of your school time is going to be spent during that school year, which is going to be, August to April, something like that. You're not going to spend the bulk of the summers there. So look at that kind of stuff. And then you have safety here as well. I know all the parents are already thinking about that, but it is an important piece you guys want to definitely consider. Just ask us questions. What's crime rate on campus or things like that? We're happy to help. Campus living is another thing. These are all pieces that you want to start considering, again, about building that resume, right? Clubs on campus could be a great way to add something to your resume that maybe helps you stand out or gets you some experience, or maybe helps you find some direction, right? That's all stuff you want to consider. Sports is another big one. I know a lot of people want to go out and play sports in college. This is one that I usually say, kind of see what that's going to look like next to your career, right? If you want to go and be an athletic trainer for, a volleyball team or something like that, Division II, Division I volleyball could look really good on that resume, right? But if your goal is to be, a computer scientist, Division I sports may take away from a club or an internship or something that you can do that can more directly affect that resume. And club sports are a way to, you still play on a competitive team, you compete against different schools, you even can sometimes get scholarships, but you're not at that stress level. You're not being told when to sleep, what to eat, all that kind of stuff. You have a lot more freedom to maybe do some of those other things. So you want to start even matching, sports and degree. Is it going to get me any closer to where I want to be at the end of the day? And then meal options, this is the part all the students are probably already thinking about, but you want to consider that stuff, right? Are you going to have cafeterias, different restaurants, a mix of both? And then most importantly, what's going to be included in the meal plan, right? If you have a cafeteria and then there's a Chick-fil-A across that, you can go to, but you don't have the money for it, it's just going to haunt you every day, all that kind of stuff. So you want to be somewhere where you can enjoy everything. So just think about that type of stuff, right? Campus living is another part. A lot of times I think students somewhat underestimate the importance of the housing that they're going to be in, especially because you're probably used to a comfortable house and you think everything's going to be that way. It's really important the impact of your housing can have actually on your academics. Right? Coming to a dorm where you're not comfortable, or being with roommates that you're not comfortable with, can have a huge impact on your ability to focus on the academic side. So you want to consider all of these pieces. I put in the must-haves and the deal breakers for your housing, right? Think realistically about what can you absolutely not live without, and what is it that you really need to be successful, and see if your colleges are going to offer that. And again, visit campuses, see if you could spend the night in a dorm and get an idea of what's it going to be like, potentially sharing a bathroom with a hall of students or something like that. And then also the roommate process is a big one. Who are you going to live with? Try to find colleges that let you pick your roommate, right? For us, you guys do like a profile. We find students that are going to match with you, but you can pick from anybody who you're going to room with. So you're guided, but you're still getting control. So if you get a bad roommate, it's your fault, but if you get a good roommate, it's our fault. And then the next piece you want to look at is housing availability. One is housing available for all 4 years. If you want that typical college lifestyle or you want to go be a part of clubs, do you have the option to live on that campus the whole time? The flip side of this, how often are you required to live on campus, right? A lot of colleges will say, hey, you have to live here your first year. And sometimes you're either going to be living far away or that housing's really expensive on campus. It's all just stuff to consider and really start thinking about. Next here is the student body, kind of campus size in general. There's 3 big places you want to start here. The first one is going to be number of students on campus, right? Number of students studying there, that's a really straightforward place to start. But typically a bigger university is going to be a little bit more reach, more opportunities, much like that larger city would, correct? The second piece you want to follow that up with every time is how many of those kids live on campus. If you're looking for a college that's going to have sporting events or clubs that are active or Nerf gun wars or karaoke nights or all the stuff colleges have, right? You want to be on a campus that's going to have kids there to facilitate it. I went to a campus where GCU had 70% of our students living on campus full time. Right? Had I gone to a campus that didn't have that environment, I may have went to Nerf gun wars by myself and that would not have been nearly as fun. Right? You want to look for that type of stuff. You want to find a campus where you're going to be able to be active. The third one to follow that up with is class size. Big schools do not always mean big lecture halls with 600-700 kids. So ask the question, what's the average class size? If a campus is able to put the resources to give you those smaller class sizes and that more intimate learning environment, you may find you're going to thrive better in that environment and you're maybe able to fall through and do better in your academics. So just ask those kind of questions. You also see here like diversity, average GPA. The average GPA usually has a lot more of an impact on how much resources the school has versus just the way the school is set up. So if you're looking at a campus that has a higher GPA, that's going to tend to be a school that has more student resources or things to help support that student body. Again, here kind of with academic support, how much are the counselors going to help with that side? How much tutoring centers or how many open office hours are the professors going to have? I met with every single professor I had in college, every single one. I met with them, linked up with them on LinkedIn, tried to build that connection because college was the best place to network for that kind of stuff. So you want to ask those kind of questions. How much access are you going to have to those different resources? Also, is your college counselor going to schedule you for your classes? Or do you have to jump online and click on the class before your roommate does? How is that going to be set up and are you going to be able to take them in the right order? All that kind of stuff is going to have a huge impact on your graduation rate, what types of classes you're taking, all that kind of stuff. Also like health centers, tutoring centers, all that type of stuff you can see as well. And then academics. Ultimately, college you're looking for, a college that's going to offer the academics you're looking at. The first thing you want to consider is, are they going to have the desired major that you're looking for? A campus can have 2 Chick-fil-A's and a Taco Bell, but if you want to become a biomedic or a marine biologist and they don't have that program, then you really got to start thinking about, okay, how important is that degree for you? And do you need to find another school? Most likely, if you keep hunting, you're going to find another school that meets those same desires that you have, but it's going to set you up for that ultimate job that you're looking for. So that's the first thing you should look at. The next thing right here is really important. How soon do you get to start your core classes? I'll give you guys an example of one of my classmates at GCU. He was a nursing student, that's where he started, and his very first class on campus was dissecting human cadavers. Okay, dissecting human bodies, his first class as a nursing student. He took that class, and by the end of the semester, he switched majors really quickly because he said that was gross, he didn't like it, it freaked him out, but he realized, you know what, if I don't like that in that first semester, nursing's probably not the best route for me, right? He was able to switch over, he went over to marketing with me and kind of kept moving forward, right? Now, that wasn't a bad thing. A lot of college kids change their major. It doesn't have to be a negative problem. The issue is when it happens later on in your year, right? If you find that out your freshman year, you still have plenty of flexibility with your class schedule to adjust and graduate on time. But if you spend your first 2 years taking math, English, philosophy, history type courses, that's not going to give you the same direction as taking, principles of marketing in your first semester or building robotic hands in your first semester. You want to make sure you get that kind of direction right away. That has a huge impact on graduation times. Also ask about, is there secondary applications? Is there mid-program testing? What's the learning environment going to look like hands-on versus textbook learning? Access to professor we mentioned earlier. Access to labs is really important as well. Again, it's about building that resume, right? If you want to go into engineering, and if your resume can show 4 years of experience in an engineering lab using 3D printers, things like that, it's going to really help you stand out versus students going to a school that maybe only graduate students get access to those labs for. So you want to ask those kind of questions and prepare yourself again for that resume. The next piece here is time to graduation. Oh. 1 second. So time to graduation, this is going to have a big impact on your costs as well, right? And also, I don't know about you guys, I didn't want to spend a ton more time in classrooms than I had to, right? So I was ready to go out and get into the workforce. So ask students, like, what's the graduation rate? How many kids are going out and actually completing the program? And how many students are graduating on time or even early? You guys probably know the California system tends to be a challenge, right? There's so many kids going into the system because there's a lot of good academics here, but it creates a system where it's hard to get out on time, hard to graduate even early, and that's, again, going to cost you money and spend more time in a classroom that you may not necessarily need to. So ask that kind of stuff, right? I graduated early because I was given that option, and it was a huge piece of me because it gave me 1 year less or 2 years less of spending on tuition, but also I was able to go and be ahead of everyone else that was applying for jobs. Now for the rest of my life, I have 2 years more experience than the people I'm applying against. So it's a big piece to look at. Also, is it difficult to get the classes that you're going to need, and how far in advance are you going to get those classes scheduled? So it's all stuff you want to look at. Also, my biggest recommendation is 16 credits. If you know anything, 16 credits is the full-time course load to graduate in 4 years at most universities. So 12 credits is a full-time student, but 16 credits is what you got to do to track in order to graduate on time. So you want to look for that type of stuff as well, typically. Other costs, so tuition is the first number you see, right? That's the biggest thing you're going to see. But I always recommend talk with those counselors, try to get information past that tuition, right? Because there's so many things that play into the cost of going to college outside of just the cost of your classes. Housing, meal plans, textbooks, activity fees. I did it again. Activity fees, all that type of stuff can go in and play an effect on what it's going to cost you to get that education, as well as how long it's going to take you to graduate, right? My biggest recommendation, if you're looking at schools and one's a 4-year graduation rate versus a 6-year, line them up next to each other, and even if the tuition is lower for the 6-year, paying that for 6 years versus the 4 plus the 2 years of income you may miss out on can be actually cheaper to go to this one, right? So you want to compare the two side by side. And again, just ask us questions. If someone was to apply for GCU today, the first thing I do is walk you through line by line a budget sheet and show you everything. Because I want to make sure you guys know that information right off the bat, because that's obviously a huge piece of this college decision. Parking's another one that usually stumps a lot of students. I've seen it at like $800–900 a semester, so you want to make sure you're prepared for that one. Financial aid packet, we had a great presentation just now on the whole financial aid side of it. When you are getting budget sheets from colleges, the biggest thing I'm just going to say is make sure you know the difference of your grants and loans. Grants is the free money, loans is what you have to pay back. Make sure if you see that loan, you know that big difference there. And then also ask like the length of scholarships. Is it just your freshman year, or do you get them all 4 years? And what are the requirements to maintain that scholarship as well? Some final advice, my biggest advice right here is going to be, don't be afraid to ask questions and apply and look into multiple different types of universities. They're all different, they all have their different strengths. There's a reason we have 4,000 universities in the United States. It's not because there's one school that's the best one for everyone, right? You have to figure out which one's going to fit your needs specifically and set you up individually for success. So look at a wide range. The reason I have this quiz set up is so you guys can start narrowing down on what it might look like. But what I guarantee is once you guys start looking deeper into some of those schools that fit those characteristics, you're going to see that things are going to change. Maybe you want a smaller class size, or maybe you want to be in a bigger city than you were originally thinking. Things like that are going to adjust as you start looking deeper into these colleges. So don't be afraid to change that as well. Also, don't stop at that tuition number, right? Don't be afraid to ask us, hey, what's past this number? What else can I be looking at as far as costs go? And visit as many college campuses as possible. Check out everything you can. Any chance you get to go see a campus, spend the night on a campus, see it firsthand, it's going to have a huge impact. I was telling them, I learned as much visiting the colleges that I didn't like as I did from visiting the ones that I did. It's going to tell you a lot of information. You guys have a lot of colleges here in California. There's a big benefit to living here, right? So take advantage, take a look at them. If you can, visit them while they're in school. It's a completely different environment than just seeing buildings in a summer break, for example. So take a look at that stuff. And also applications, always ask if there's a free application. There's usually this misconception that if you apply to a school, you may get stuck committing to it or something like that. Usually an application, at least for us, let's just give you more information, and let's just kind of give you more of that info so you can compare apples to apples. The last thing I want to mention is a little GCU plug. We are offering free trips for seniors and juniors to visit our campus. You guys spend the night in a dorm, tour our campus, tour our labs, get a meal card, all that kind of stuff. You get to see it firsthand. Actually require students to have been stepped foot on our campus before they even make those decisions, because it is so important. It's a gut check, I say it. It's going to tell you this feels right or this doesn't. We also have summer programs. A lot of schools do this, where you can go do maybe an engineering program or a nursing program on a college campus, spend the night in a dorm for a week, something like that. Those are great ways to, one, start building that resume, and two, experience a college as a student and see everything right there. So those are all great options. I'm going to be hanging out, so feel free to take this information. I live in the area. I'm the local contact. Happy to help with any questions you guys could possibly have. Thank you.
Our next presenter is Mrs. Crystal Demera. Most of you know her. Thank you very much.
A celebrity, right? All right, so I'm just going to really briefly talk to you about the career exploration class that all freshmen at Faith Christian take. It's actually a combination class with driver's ed, so it's we kind of do both of them at the same time. So it's not an entire semester, but we do a lot with career exploration in our class. So it's the spring semester, and what we do in the class is we just explore a lot of different possible career paths. We have some of my students are in here today. We're in the process right now. We've been taking different online quizzes. There's a 16personalities.com, which is a Myers-Briggs test, and so you take answer a whole bunch of questions, and then it gives you an analysis of your personality, and we look through that to, it gives you a profile, and then you can see how it could apply to relationships and parenting and career paths and things like that. So it gives you some additional information. And then careerexplorer.com is another one that we just recently found that I'm loving as well. It gives you some really specific potential careers. And then there's mynextmove.org. So that one has a variety of options as well. And it helps you if you know kind of the career path you want, but you don't know specific careers that you want to look into. Or if you're like, I don't have a clue and this is just who I am, again, it lets you answer a bunch of questions. The point of the class really is so that the students can kind of get to know themselves better. Part of the process is after we kind of do the personality exploration, then they go through this process of writing a personal mission statement, because I want them to walk out of the class knowing these are my values, this is who I want to become, so that when they're making decisions down the road, they can say, okay, does this career path line up with my values? Is it going to give me the kinds of opportunities that matter to me? And then when they're looking at the type of university, the location, all those things, you can go back to that mission statement and say, okay, this is about who I want to become, not just what I want to become, because the who is so much more important than the what. So that's where we start. And then we move on to, we kind of narrow it down based on all of our research on our personal goals and abilities and personalities and all that fun stuff, narrow it down to a career path, and then they do some personal research and they'll do a creative presentation of that. And it's just about, hey, what would it take to get to that, to take that career path? What do I need to do? What kind of education? What kind of potential internships or experience? Does it fit with my values and my personality? So that's kind of where we are in the process this semester already. Then another thing that's really important that we are doing is, this is called the College Readiness Binder. And I know it's hard to miss. But in this binder, students are going to be keeping track of basically all the information that they're going to need as they prepare for the college application process, and also potential internships and job opportunities. So they'll keep track of all of their extracurricular activities, their course lists, their grades. Your transcripts have a special place in here as well. Any honors that you may have earned, those are going to go into this binder as well. So we're going to start it in the career exploration class, and then it grows with you throughout the 4 years at Faith Christian. And then if you have any questions about that, I'll have this at the back as well. The other fun thing that we do in this class is we bring in guest speakers. And in the past, we've had the mayor of Marysville, real estate agent, CHP, fire captain, entrepreneur, I mean, just a variety of people. And so that's kind of a fun process as well. They get to ask questions and learn a little bit more about these individuals' personal paths. So it's a lot of fun, and it's one of those things that we're continuing to develop. And if you have any questions about that, please see me afterwards.
Our next presenter is Mrs. Brandy Kwan. She's our senior seminar class teacher.
Yay, this is
Okay, so I'm only going to take like 30 seconds, but I know it's 7:30, so if you're in softball and you need to go, you can go. It's okay. So much love. Okay, so the senior seminar class, this was kind of Mr. Smith and I talking through this brainchild that I had of trying to get the senior project class, or the senior project, out of English classes. And we said, okay, if we're going to do that, we need something for the seniors to do first semester. So upon thinking about that, I started to develop this idea of this class that is designed to get students thinking about this really impending reality that they are not going to be in high school next year. And they are going to have to face real life. So some of the things that we did in senior seminar this year would be encouraging reflection via self-assessments. So it kind of builds on what Mrs. Demerit does in the careers exploration class. We do Myers-Briggs type indicator tests, we do spiritual gifting tests, and these kind of things help the students get in touch with things they may not realize about themselves, and like Mitchell was saying, whether you would want to work with people or know people or just some people, or like what you might want to do with your life. So we do some of those. And then we explored all of the post-secondary options that involve some kind of education. So we talk about community colleges, vocational schools, we talk about certification programs, military, private, and public universities. And we spend a couple days on each one of those and really just hammer home the differences and make sure that students are aware of the options that are available to them. And then we start the dreaded talks about college application essays. Their absolute favorite thing. Daniel, right? We love college application essays. Oh yes. Okay, so every single student wrote a college application essay this year. Whether they were choosing to go to a four-year university or choosing to apply to a four-year university or not, they were still expected to write that essay and really reflect on these questions, because knowing how to answer these questions is still going to be important whether or not you are going to a four-year university, because a lot of these are the same kinds of questions you'll get in interviews. We also talked about the Common App. There are many, many, many schools that use that, and several of our students were able to apply. If you don't know what the Common App is, you apply for any of the schools that accept the Common App all at one time, in one fell swoop. And it just ships your applications off, and then they'll send you your acceptance letters, hopefully. We also talked about financial aid. That was touched on very heavily here, so I won't go into that. We do a career study. So each one of the students, you may have seen if you were in the school at all in September or October, I believe, in the front hallway there were trifold posters, and every single senior did a career exploration study that detailed what they would be most interested in doing, what education they would have to have, what schools would be helpful to reaching those goals, and I think overall they found it really informative, and a lot of them were able to actually find a school that they really, really wanted to go to through this process. And we also worked on resume building. Every single senior wrote a resume and wrote a cover letter that they can use to apply for just an after-school job or for something once they go to college, for internships, that kind of thing. And we also worked on interviewing skills. with a fun video project where they had to interview the do's and don'ts and videotape it, and it was pretty hilarious. If you don't know, we have some pretty hilarious students that go here. So, but also very informative, very hands-on way to do that. So that's what senior seminar looked like this year. Not really sure if that is going to stay exactly the same. This is kind of the bare bones structure. It's kind of an ever-evolving brainchild. So there are things that I want to change and things that we got feedback on from the current seniors, and we know that there are some things that need to change and some things that we need to make better. But this is what it is. And hopefully this will be around for a long time to come because I really feel like it's informative for the kids. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to now open it up for questions. If you would like to just raise your hand and I'll call on you. Any questions? Wow.
Oh, yeah.
I think you guys...
I always have
Yes,
one.
sure.
So you can count on that. What career tests have you found to be good to kind of get some suggestions for careers? So what I did when I was here at the high school is I would have kids take a career test and then try internships, like you kind of touched on this, in those suggested careers. And then so they could go to college and kind of have a goal and then perhaps be able to hit that goal better by knowing what it was. Do you know of any that you like? I mean, Crystal mentioned, Mrs. Demerit mentioned. Yeah.
Do you have any particular?
There is one online, it's ONET. Some of our counselors use it in their counseling class.
It's called what?
ONET.
ONET.
Yes, and it's a free one
Okay.
that students can go online, they can create an account or they can do it without creating one. And it gives them some feedback on, based on their interest, possible careers they might be interested in.
Yeah, and some of the ones listed are really good as well. GCU does have a career compass as well. If you went on gcu.edu/career compass, that's the one I even used when I was looking at it. I can't think of the names of any others, but it looks at 6 different mini tests on personality, skills, study interests, hobbies, things like that. And then it'll find careers that match it, and then the degrees that would match that career.
So you can actually do that even if you don't go there?
Yeah, it's just online.
What's it called again?
Career Compass.
And then
GCU Career Compass. Yeah, Grand Canyon University. Good question.
Any other questions? Okay, you guys did a good job covering everything. Mr. Smith is going to close us out tonight. Thank you so much for coming, everyone.
Thank you guys for being here. And you guys can see we're trying to link up with you earlier as a family and student and stay with you through the whole process to get you there. And just like Brandy said, the senior seminar was a brainstorm. We worked on it. We're going to improve it, upgrade it for next year, take student feedback on what they thought was valuable or something that we missed. And that's the whole process, and that's what I'm working with Ms. Johns about, is let's start earlier and let's work together longer. So when it's that senior year, you've got a plan, it's in place. Hopefully we can get the students launched, right? Or have a plan to be launched. So I'm going to close in prayer. Again, you guys we have a lot of cookies back there that I don't want to carry out. So please take some cookies, water. We're going to be around for a little bit to answer questions, visit if you'd like, stay. If not, we'll wrap up and have a safe drive home, okay? It's still pretty slick out. So let me pray and we'll close up. Heavenly Father, again, we love you. We're always thankful for the blessings you have in our life. And we just ask, as a school, that this is an area that we can develop and improve and really partner with the families. Give them the support and guidance, direction, just to help the students. And Lord, we just ask, in our website and our motto, we want to be world changers for Christ. And that's the whole idea. You gave us skills. You gave us strengths, and we want to use those to glorify you and just have an impact on your kingdom. We thank you for your love each day and the sacrifice of your Son. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you for being here.